In the 1980s, there were a series of writers who challenged the way people thought of the then growing popularity of colour television and news media. I've written before about Neil Postman and his fear of our world becoming a trivial society, and Marshall McLuhan, who warned us that the medium is the message. I've been searching for a modern author who can do in our times what they did then: challenge assumptions, lift up the veil of technology, and help us understand what lies underneath. Enter Byung-Chul Han. Han is a South Korean-born German philosopher and is one of the most daring philosophers I've read in recent years. What's more, Byung-Chul Han is telling the stories that need to be told today, stories about modern technology, about where we are as a society and where we are heading. This winter, I dug into 5 of Byung-Chul Han's most recent books to discover the definitive philosophy of Byung-Chul Han. If there is an overall thesis in Han's recent works, it's this: we are living in a shallow achievement society where all negativity has been erased, edges smoothed, and filters applied. We are showing more of ourselves, often in close-ups, and seeing less of the other. In a constant pressure for achievement, success, and self-gratification, we are becoming isolated and mentally ill, detached from nature, authentic experience, and other people. In his most famous work, The Burnout Society, Han lays out the key framework for his argument. In the 20th century, we lived in a disciplinary society, Han says. In the 21st century, we live in an achievement society. We have moved from being obedience subjects to achievement subjects, or in other words, entrepreneurs of the self. What has remained consistent is the pressure to produce more. What has changed is the language. Instead of being subjected to an order that we should do something, we are being subjected to an imperative that we can do something. But can is much more effective than the negativity of should. Therefore, the social unconscious switches from should to can. The achievement subject is faster and more productive than the obedience subject. However, the can does not revoke the should. The obedience subject remains disciplined. In our constant drive for achievement, for achieving anything we can do, we get sick and burnt out. The achievement subject works manically to maximize achievement, leading to self-exploitation. We start fighting ourselves. Alan Ehrenberg, one of Han's many quotations in the book, says it succinctly: the depressed individual is unable to measure up. He is tired of becoming himself. It's a beautiful line. We cannot just be ourselves anymore. We have to become ourselves, and this process is exhausting. To become ourselves, we have to constantly keep achieving more and more, leading to further exhaustion and burnout. Because our achievement is performative, we lose touch with other people and start indulging in narcissism and self-love. This leads neatly onto Byung-Chul Han's other works on love, beauty, and entertainment. Starting with love, Byung-Chul Han tells us that today we're in a crisis of love. This crisis is caused by the growth of narcissism and the separation between us and the other. The world is increasingly appearing not as something other to us, but as an innumerable number of reflections of ourselves. We see perfectly crystallized digital images without any vagueness or ambiguity. But it is in this very vagueness and ambiguity that we can most connect with someone else. It is in the negatives, Han says, that we discover the other. An easier way of understanding this is the more common idea: it is someone's imperfections that make them beautiful. In a digital world without imperfection, with just a screen, with no past or future, only now, there is no beauty. Here, Byung-Chul Han's next book on my reading list comes into play, Saving Beauty. It's a To me, this book has the best English translation and is therefore the strongest of the 5 I read. Han starts with an exhortation of the artwork of Jeff Koons, who I have written about before. The artwork of Koons and the modern aesthetic of much of modern culture has a certain smooth characteristic, says Han. Why do we today find what is smooth beautiful? Beyond its aesthetic value, it reflects a general social imperative. It embodies today's society of positivity. What is smooth does not injure, nor does it offer any resistance. It is looking for like. The smooth object deletes its against. Any form of negativity is removed. Here he brings up his familiar themes. Today we have lost the negative for the positive. We must be positive at all times. This, however, traps us into a banal, shallow passivity. When we look at a Koons artwork, the only response we can have is, wow. There is no negative thing to react against. As a result, we lose introspection and contemplative distance. The aesthetic of smooth abolishes distance. This idea resonates with me, in part because it's so present in the types of media we see today. Instagram with its perfect images, or television with its makeup-laden news presenters. According to Han, all digital media has this smooth quality. It turns even nature into a window of itself. What else do we see on our Instagram feed but a recursive look at ourselves? In Byung-Chul Han's words, a smooth space of the same. Today, the entire globe is developing into a panopticon. There is no outside space. The panopticon is becoming total. No wall separates inside from outside. Google and social networks, which present themselves as spaces of freedom, are assuming panoptic forms. Today, surveillance is not occurring as an attack on freedom, as is normally assumed. Instead, people are voluntarily surrendering to the panoptic gaze. They deliberately collaborate in the digital panopticon by denuding and exhibiting themselves. The prisoner of the digital panopticon is a perpetrator and a victim at the same time. Herein lies the dialectic of freedom. Freedom turns out to be a form of control. This is another way of reinforcing his achievement-subject argument earlier. In a society of achievement, we end up exhibiting various aspects of ourselves to the extent that every subject is also its own advertising object. We become our own commodity, while at the same time selling ourselves as entrepreneurs. Reading the philosophy of Byung-Chul Han has made me really confront my own assumptions of where we are as a society. There is so much to lose in our push for constant achievement, production, and consumption, and there is also a lot to gain, surprisingly, from the negatives in life. If I've learned anything from Han, it's that we don't need perfection, smooth lines, and filters to feel complete. We need the authenticity that comes from the negative, the imperfect, the hidden, and the simply beautiful. Instead of falling in love with ourselves, we should be falling in love with others and the world, not to see ourselves in them, not to commodify them, not to achieve friendship or marriage or love, but to appreciate what makes them different to us. Instead of thinking about what we can or should do, we should try to dislodge ourselves from imperatives, especially if they lead to the same outcome. It takes a lot of introspection to be authentic, to connect to the world, and to connect to our own instincts outside of social imperatives. But Han reinforces the idea that this is essential. To be free, we need to let go of achievement, of the imperative to be positive at all times. We must just be us, with the negativity and imperfections that come with that. It would sound banal if it weren't so difficult.